I never thought one night could destroy my entire life until I woke up with something crawling inside me. But let me start from the beginning, because what happened to me could happen to any girl who thinks money can solve all her problems. My name is Sarah, and I was 23 when I made the biggest mistake of my life. I lived in Lagos with my sick mother and 2 younger brothers. We had nothing. Our rent was due, my mother needed medicine, and my brothers were about to drop out of school. I worked 3 jobs just to buy bread. In the morning, I cleaned offices. In the afternoon, I sold water on the street. At night, I washed dishes at a restaurant. But it was never enough. One Friday evening, I was walking home from the restaurant when a big black car stopped beside me. The window rolled down, and I saw the most handsome man I had ever seen. He had smooth dark skin, perfect teeth, and eyes that seemed to see right through me. "Hello, beautiful," he said with a voice like honey. "What's your name?" I should have kept walking, but I was tired, hungry, and desperate. "Sarah," I whispered. "I'm David," he smiled. The morning I realized I was losing myself started like any other day at the Sarah Foundation. I was reviewing applications from girls seeking our help when Joy walked into my office with tea and her usual bright smile. "Good morning, sunshine," she said, setting the cup on my desk. "How are you feeling today?" I looked up at her, and for a split second, I saw something different. Not Joy, my best friend who had stood by me through everything. I saw weakness, vulnerability, someone I could easily control and manipulate. The thought lasted only a moment, but it terrified me. "I'm fine, Ilid, forcing a smile." But I wasn't fine. These dark thoughts had been creeping in for weeks now. Thoughts that felt foreign yet familiar. Thoughts that sounded like David's voice whispering in the corners of my mind. Joy studied my face with concern. "Sarah, you look tired. When's the last time you had a full night's sleep?" "I sleep fine," I snapped, more harshly than I intended. Joy stepped back, surprised by my tone. In the 3 years we'd worked together, I had never spoken to her like that. "I'm sorry," I said quickly. "I didn't mean to. I'm just stressed about the new shelter opening." But even as I apologized, part of me enjoyed seeing the hurt flash across Joy's face. That part of me wanted to hurt her more, to see how much power I had over someone who trusted me completely. I pushed the thought away, horrified at myself. That evening, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, studying my reflection. My eyes, which had always been warm brown, now had tiny flecks of red scattered through the iris like drops of blood in chocolate. I touched the mirror, wondering if I was imagining it. "You're not imagining anything," a voice said behind me. I spun around, but my apartment was empty. The voice had been David's. 3 months into my pregnancy, I decided to visit Grace again. Maybe seeing how far she had fallen would motivate me to fight harder against David's influence. Grace lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in Surulere with her 3 children and her mother. Before the curse, she had been a seamstress, known in her neighborhood for her kindness and her beautiful singing voice during church services. When I knocked on her door, one of her children answered, a little boy about 6 years old. "Hello," I said gently. "Is your mother home?" The boy's eyes filled with fear. "Mama is sleeping. She sleeps a lot now. And when she's awake, He struggled to find the words. "She's not Mama anymore." My heart broke for him. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emmanuel." "Emmanuel, can you tell your mama that Sarah is here to see her?" The boy shook his head frantically. "No. When people come to see Mama, she gets angry. Last week, she made our neighbor cry just by looking at her." Before I could respond, Grace appeared behind Emmanuel. She looked like she had aged 10 years in the past month. Her once bright eyes were now pools of red, and her skin had taken on a grayish pallor. "Emmanuel, go to your room," she commanded in a voice that was deeper than her natural tone. The little boy scurried away without argument. "Grace," I said carefully, "I wanted to check on you." She laughed, but the sound was hollow and cruel. "Check on me? Or check on him?" She touched her swollen belly. "I'm worried about you. And your children." "My children?" Grace's expression darkened. Those children are nothing compared to the power growing inside me. David's child will be worth more than all of them combined. I felt sick. The Grace I had met months ago would have died before saying such a thing about her babies. Grace, that's not you talking. That's David. You love your children. Love is weakness, she said, echoing words David had once spoken to me. Love makes you vulnerable. David is teaching me to be strong. By destroying your relationship with your children, Grace's red eyes flashed with anger. You're just jealous because David chose me to carry his most powerful child. What do you mean? The baby inside me isn't just David's offspring. It's David himself. He's going to be reborn through me, and I'll be his queen in the new world he creates. I stared at her in horror. Grace, David is using you. When that baby is born, it will kill you, just like it killed Blessing. Blessing was weak. I'm strong enough to survive the birth. David told me so. From deeper in the apartment, I heard a child crying. Then another voice, Grace's mother, trying to comfort them. Don't your children need you? I asked. For just a moment, Grace's red eyes flickered. I saw a flash of the real Grace underneath, the mother who used to sing lullabies and braid her daughter's hair. My children, she whispered. Then the red blazed back to life. My children will bow to David's child. They'll serve us in the new world. I realized there was no reaching her. David's influence had consumed her completely. As I turned to leave, I heard little Emmanuel calling from his room. Mama, will you sing to us tonight like you used to? Grace's face remained cold. Stop asking for childish things, Emmanuel. You need to grow up. I left the apartment with tears in my eyes and David's laughter echoing in my head. That night, Joy came to my apartment with dinner from our favorite restaurant. She had been doing this more often lately, and I suspected she was keeping an eye on me. You didn't eat lunch today, she said, unpacking jollof rice and grilled chicken. Mrs. Adunni said you locked yourself in your office all afternoon. I was working on grant applications, I said, though I couldn't actually remember what I had done for most of the day. Joy set the food on my coffee table and sat across from me. In the lamplight, I could see the worry lines that had appeared around her eyes over the past few weeks. Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Are you still you? The question hit me like a slap. What do you mean? I mean, sometimes when I look at you, I see my best friend Sarah. But other times, she paused, as if gathering courage. Other times, I see someone else, someone cold, someone who looks at me like I'm not a person, but a thing to be used. I wanted to deny it, but I couldn't, because she was right. Joy, I'm fighting it. Every day, I'm fighting to stay myself. Fighting what, exactly? I told her about the voice in my head, about the dark thoughts that felt foreign yet familiar, about how sometimes I caught myself thinking about our foundation girls not as people to help, but as potential victims to exploit. Joy listened without interrupting, but I could see the fear growing in her eyes. How long has this been happening? She asked when I finished. Since the pregnancy started. But it's getting worse. The red in your eyes is getting stronger too. I touched my face self-consciously. You can see it? Sarah, honey, half your eyes are red now. How can you not notice? I went to the mirror above my sink. Joy was right. What had started as tiny flecks had spread until the red covered nearly half of each iris. I looked like I was bleeding from the inside out. Oh God! I whispered. I'm becoming him, aren't I? Joy came up behind me and put her hands on my shoulders. No. You're not. Because David would never ask that question. David would never be horrified by his own thoughts. But what if I lose the ability to be horrified? What if one day I wake up and those terrible thoughts feel normal? Then I'll remind you who you really are. I met her eyes in the mirror. What if I hurt you? What if I become so much like David that I can't stop myself from hurting the people I love? Joy was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Do you remember when we first met? I smiled despite my fear. The job interview. You were so nervous you spilled coffee all over your resume. And you laughed. Not at me but with me. You said, well, at least now I know you're human. Then you hired me on the spot. You were perfect for the job. No, I wasn't. I had no experience with nonprofit work. I couldn't even operate the copy machine. But you saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. Your heart, I said. I saw your heart. Exactly. And that heart you saw, that's what makes you Sarah. David might be able to change your thoughts, your appearance, even your voice. But he can't change your heart. Not unless you let him. I turned around to face her. What if my heart isn't strong enough? Then we'll find a way to make it stronger. That night, as Joy slept on my couch, she had refused to leave me alone. I lay awake listening to David's voice in my head. She's going to abandon you, he whispered. When you become too dangerous, she'll run away just like everyone else in your life. No, I whispered back. Joy isn't like that. Everyone has a breaking point, Sarah. Even her. I pressed my hands over my ears, but the voice was inside my head. There was no blocking it out. You know what you need to do, David continued. End her before she ends you. Show her who has the real power. I sat up in bed, my heart racing. For a moment, I had actually considered it. I had imagined walking into the living room and wrapping my hands around Joy's throat while she slept. The fact that I could even think such a thing about my best friend terrified me more than anything David had ever done to me directly. I was losing myself and I was running out of time. The next morning, I called Mrs. Rose. I was wondering when you would contact me, she said before I could speak. I need help. David's voice is getting louder, and I'm having thoughts that aren't my own. Come to me tonight. Bring joy. It's time you learned the truth about what you're really fighting. That evening, Joy and I took a taxi to Mrs. Rose's compound in Mushin. The old woman welcomed us with tea and a concerned expression. Child, she said, studying my face. The change is accelerating faster than I expected. What change? Sit down, both of you. What I'm about to tell you will be difficult to hear. We sat on wooden stools in her small living room, surrounded by herbs, candles, and protective charms hanging from the ceiling. David Okafor was not the first of his kind, Mrs. Rose began. He was created by something much older and more evil. Created how? Joy asked. 60 years ago, when I was a young woman, there was a British colonial administrator named James Whitmore. He was fascinated by African traditional religion, but not in a respectful way. He wanted to steal our power for himself. Mrs. Rose's eyes grew distant with painful memories. James found an ancient ritual that could grant immortality, but it required the corruption of innocence. He began targeting young African girls, using them in dark ceremonies that drained their life force to extend his own. I felt sick. How many girls? Hundreds, maybe thousands. The colonial government covered it up, said the girls had died of disease or run away. What happened to him? My older sister was one of his victims. Mrs. Rose's voice broke slightly. She was only 16, beautiful, kind, full of dreams about becoming a teacher. I'm so sorry, Joy said softly. When I found out what James had done to her, I spent years learning the old ways. I tracked him down and confronted him, but I was too young, too inexperienced. He overpowered me. But you survived. Barely. But before I escaped, I cursed him. I said that his evil would eventually consume him from within, and that anyone he created in his image would face the same fate. I leaned forward. David was created by this James? Not directly. James died in the 1970s, but not before passing his power to several apprentices. David was one of their descendants. Each generation became more evil, more powerful, but also more unstable. What does this mean for me? Mrs. Rose looked at me with deep sadness. It means David's influence on you isn't just about the pregnancy. It's about a curse that has been passed down through generations. The evil that created David is now trying to create you. But I'm fighting it. I'm not letting it win. Child, the very fact that you're fighting it so hard is what makes you dangerous to them. They've never encountered someone with your strength of will. I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm losing pieces of myself every day. That's because you are. But you're also gaining something else. What? Power. Real power, not the illusion David offered you before. The power to end this curse forever. Joy grabbed my hand. What kind of power? The power to break the cycle. To ensure that no one else ever has to face what Sarah is facing. How? Mrs. Rose was quiet for a long moment. There is a way to stop the curse from spreading to future generations. But it requires the ultimate sacrifice. You mean death. Not just death. It requires someone to willingly take on all the evil that has been passed down through generations, and then destroy themselves completely. Body, soul, and spirit. I felt cold. And if I do this, David and all his evil dies with me? Yes. But Sarah, you need to understand what this means. It's not just your life you would be giving up. It's your soul. Your chance at any kind of afterlife. You would cease to exist in every sense. Joy stood up abruptly. No, absolutely not. There has to be another way. I've studied this curse for 60 years, Mrs. Rose said gently. This is the only way. Then we find another solution, Joy said firmly. Sarah has already sacrificed enough. But I was thinking about Grace's children, afraid of their own mother. About Blessing, dead at 25. About all the girls who would suffer if David's line of evil continued. When would I have to decide? I asked. Soon. Once the pregnancy reaches 8 months, you'll be too far gone to make the choice willingly. How long do I have? 3 weeks. Maybe less. 3 weeks to decide whether to save the world by destroying myself completely. 3 weeks to say goodbye to everything and everyone I loved. 3 weeks to find the courage to face absolute oblivion. That night I dreamed of my mother. In the dream, she was young again, braiding my hair while humming a lullaby. Mama, I said, I might have to go away soon. I know, my daughter. I'm scared. Brave people are always scared. That's what makes them brave. What if I make the wrong choice? You won't. You have the heart of a protector. You always have. When I woke up, my pillow was wet with tears, and David's voice was laughing in my head. Your mother will be so disappointed when she realizes her precious daughter chose to become nothing rather than everything. But for once, his voice didn't frighten me, because in my dream, I had remembered who I really was. Not David's victim, not his vessel, not his creation. Sarah, protector of the innocent, defender of the vulnerable. And if that's who I was, then I already knew what choice I would make. The only question was whether I could find the strength to follow through. Over the next week, Joy and I tracked down the remaining cursed women. What we found broke my heart. Of the 17 women originally affected, 5 had already died giving birth to David's offspring. Each baby had lived just long enough to speak David's name before crumbling to dust. 3 women, including Grace, were now completely possessed. They had gathered together in an abandoned warehouse in Acacia, where they spent their days drawing David's ritual symbols on the walls and chanting his name. When we visited them, they moved in perfect synchronization, like puppets controlled by the same string. Their red eyes tracked our every movement, and when they spoke, it was in unison with David's voice. You cannot stop what has already begun, they said together. We are the vessels of his return. Through us, he will be reborn stronger than ever. Grace, I called out, hoping to reach some part of the real woman. What about Emmanuel? What about your other children? Children are weakness. All 3 women replied in David's voice. Love is weakness. Soon you will understand as we do. I wanted to keep trying to reach them, but Joy pulled me away. They're gone, Sarah. Whatever was left of the real women is buried too deep to reach. The remaining 9 women were in various stages of possession. Some, like me, were still fighting. Others had given up the battle and were waiting to die. We met with each of them, and I told them about Mrs. Rose's revelation and the choice I was facing. You would do that for us? Asked Peace, a teacher from Ikoyi whose red eyes still held flashes of her former self. You would sacrifice everything to free us? Yes. But why? You barely know us. Because you're my sisters. Because no woman should have to face this alone. Hope, a nurse from Victoria Island, started crying. I can feel him in my head all the time now. He tells me to hurt my patients. Yesterday, I almost gave the wrong medication to a child because his voice told me to. How do you resist? Asked another woman named Faith. I remember who I was before him, I said. I remember the people I love and the girls I've helped save. I remember that every day I stay myself is another day those girls are safe. But you're losing yourself anyway, Peace pointed out. We all are. Yes, but I'm choosing how I lose myself. David wants me to become him. Instead, I'm choosing to become nothing, so that he becomes nothing too. We talked for hours about fear, about sacrifice, about what it means to be brave when you're terrified. By the end of the meeting, all 9 women had agreed to participate in the ritual that would end the curse. We're going to die anyway when these babies are born, Hope said. At least this way our deaths will mean something. As we prepared to leave, Faith grabbed my hand. Sarah, will you promise me something? What? Promise me that when people tell the story of what happened here, they'll remember that we were more than just victims, that we chose to fight back. I promise. But even as I made that promise, David's voice whispered in my head, they'll forget you all within a year. Heroes are only remembered when it's convenient. I pushed his voice away and focused on Faith's eyes, which still held sparks of hope despite everything she had endured. That night, I recorded a video message for my mother and brothers. I couldn't tell them the supernatural truth, but I wanted them to know how much I loved them. If something happens to me, I said to the camera, I want you to know that every day of my life has been better because you were in it. The money I've been sending you came from work that mattered, work that helped people. I hope that gives you comfort. I paused, wiping away tears. Mama, you taught me that a woman's greatest strength comes from her willingness to protect others, even when it costs her everything. Thank you for making me strong enough to do what needs to be done. After I finished recording, I found Joy sitting on my balcony, staring out at the Lagos skyline. Penny, for your thoughts, I said, sitting beside her. I'm thinking about how unfair this is. You've already suffered so much. You've already saved so many people. Why do you have to be the one to make this final sacrifice? Because I'm the one who can. Mrs. Rose said it herself. I'm the first person strong enough to fight David's influence this hard. That strength is what makes the sacrifice possible. But it's also what makes you worth saving. I took her hand. Joy, I need you to promise me something. I'm not promising to let you die. I need you to promise that if I do this, you'll continue the Foundation's work. That you'll make sure the girls we've saved get to grow up safe and strong. Joy was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, I promise. But only if you promise me something in return. What? Promise me you'll fight until the very last moment. Promise me you won't give up hope that there might be another way. I promise. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights twinkle below us. In a few days, I would have to choose between saving myself and saving everyone else. But tonight, I was still Sarah, still myself, still here with my best friend, watching the world continue to turn. And for now, that was enough. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. 1 year after Sarah's sacrifice, Joy stood in what used to be Sarah's office, now converted into a memorial room. Sarah's desk remained exactly as she had left it, covered with grant applications, thank you letters from girls they had helped, and a small photo of Joy and Sarah laughing together at the Foundation's first anniversary party. Every morning for the past year, Joy had started her day here, talking to Sarah's photo as if her best friend could still hear her. The Lagos state government approved our expansion proposal, Joy said to the empty room. We're opening 3 new shelters next month. Can you believe it? 3. She paused, waiting for an answer that would never come. I miss you so much today, Sarah. Mrs. Adebayo brought her daughter Kemi to thank us. Remember Kemi, the 15-year-old we rescued from that forced marriage 2 years ago? She just got accepted to university. Joy's voice broke. She wanted to thank you personally. I had to explain that you weren't here anymore. And you know what she said? She said she could feel your presence anyway. That somehow, she knew you were still watching over her. A gentle breeze came through the open window, rustling the papers on Sarah's desk. Joy had learned to find comfort in these small moments, choosing to believe they were signs that Sarah was indeed still watching. The foundation had grown exponentially since Sarah's death. News of her sacrifice had spread across Africa and beyond, inspiring donations, volunteer work, and government support on a scale they had never imagined. But success felt hollow without Sarah there to share it. Joy picked up a letter from the pile on Sarah's desk, one of many that arrived daily from girls around the world who had heard Sarah's story and found the courage to escape their own dangerous situations. Dear Sarah, the letter began. My name is Amara, and I am writing from Ghana. I heard about your story from a social worker who visited my village. I want you to know that because of your courage, I found the strength to run away from the man my father wanted to sell me to. I am safe now, living in a shelter that was inspired by your foundation. Thank you for showing me that one person's bravery can change everything. Joy wiped away tears as she finished reading. Letters like this arrived every week, proving that Sarah's sacrifice was still saving lives long after her death. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Grace stood in the doorway, looking nervous. In the year since the curse was broken, Grace had slowly recovered her humanity. The red had faded from her eyes, and she had fought hard to rebuild relationships with her children. But she still carried deep guilt about the things she had said and done while possessed. Joy, do you have a moment? Grace asked. Of course. Come in. Grace entered hesitantly and looked around the memorial room. I still can't believe she's gone. Sometimes I dream about her, and in the dreams, she forgives me for all the terrible things I said. Grace, you know those weren't your words. That was David speaking through you. I know that in my head, but my heart remembers how it felt to say that my children meant nothing compared to David's baby. Grace's voice shook. How can I forgive myself for that? Joy guided Grace to the small couch where she and Sarah used to plan their work. By honoring her sacrifice, by being the mother she died to save. That's actually why I'm here. Grace pulled an envelope from her purse. I've been accepted to nursing school. I want to work in women's health, to help other mothers and children. Joy's face lit up. Grace, that's wonderful. Sarah would be so proud. The tuition is expensive, but I've saved some money, and... Grace hesitated. I was hoping the foundation might consider giving me a scholarship. Not because I deserve it, but because I want to dedicate my career to continuing Sarah's work. Without hesitation, Joy said, yes, absolutely yes. In fact, I'd like to create a program in Sarah's name, scholarships for women who want to work in fields that protect other women and children. Grace started crying. Thank you. And Joy, I visit her grave every week. I tell her about my children, how they're healing, how they're learning to trust me again. Do you think she can hear me? Before Joy could answer, the papers on Sarah's desk rustled again, despite the window being closed now. Both women looked at the desk in wonder. I think, Joy said softly, that Sarah hears everything we say to her. That evening, Joy visited Grace's home for dinner. It had become a weekly tradition, part of their mutual healing process. Grace's 3 children, Emmanuel, 8, Blessing, 6, and little Daniel, 4, had slowly learned to trust their mother again. But they still asked difficult questions. Auntie Joy, Emmanuel said as they ate rice and stew, can you tell us again about the angel lady who saved Mama? Joy glanced at Grace, who nodded encouragingly. They had agreed to tell the children a simplified version of the truth, that a brave woman named Sarah had given her life to save their mother from a terrible sickness. Well, Joy began, Sarah was the kindest, bravest person I ever knew. She helped girls and women who were in danger. Like Mama was in danger? Blessing asked. Yes, sweetheart. Your Mama was very sick, and Sarah found a way to make her better. But saving your mama meant Sarah couldn't stay with us anymore. Did it hurt? Daniel asked, his 4-year-old eyes wide with concern. Joy's heart ached. How do you explain sacrifice to children? How do you help them understand that sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go? I think, Joy said carefully, that Sarah felt scared just like anyone would. But she also felt love. She loved your mama so much, and she loved all the other women who were sick, that her love was bigger than her fear. Is she in heaven now? Emmanuel asked. I believe she's wherever good people go when they love others more than themselves, Joy replied. Can we visit her? Blessing wanted to know. Grace spoke for the first time during the conversation. We visit her grave sometimes. But you know what? I think Sarah is also here with us, in this room whenever we're being kind to each other. How do you know? Daniel asked. Because, Grace said, ever since Sarah saved me, whenever I'm being a good mama to you three, I feel warm inside, like someone is smiling at me. That's Sarah, Emmanuel declared with the certainty only children possess. Later, after the children were in bed, Grace and Joy sat on the small balcony overlooking Grace's neighborhood. They ask about their angel lady almost every night, Grace said. I think they understand better than I do sometimes. Children see truth more clearly than adults, Joy replied. They know love when they see it. Joy, I need to tell you something. About the night of the ritual. Joy turned to face her friend. What about it? Right before before she made her final sacrifice, I saw her look at me. Even though I was still partially possessed, even though David was controlling most of my thoughts, Sarah looked at me with such forgiveness, such love. Grace's voice broke. She was about to die because of a curse that I helped spread, and she looked at me like I was her sister. How do I live up to that kind of love? By passing it on, Joy said simply. By showing your children that same unconditional love. By becoming the nurse you want to be. By helping other women the way Sarah helped you. But what if I'm not strong enough? What if I fail? Then you get back up and try again. That's what Sarah would do. As if summoned by her name, a warm breeze swept across the balcony, carrying the scent of jasmine from Grace's small garden. She's here, Grace whispered. I can feel her. Joy nodded, not trusting herself to speak without crying. They sat in comfortable silence, two women forever bonded by the sacrifice of a third, learning together how to carry on when your hero is gone. 6 months later, Joy received a call that filled her with both excitement and trepidation. Joy, it's Hope. I have news. Hope had been one of the cursed women who survived the ritual. In the 18 months since, she had returned to her work as a nurse and had become one of the Foundation's most dedicated volunteers. What's the news? Joy asked. I'm pregnant. Joy's heart stopped. Hope. How do you feel about it? Terrified and excited in equal measure. But Joy, this is different. This baby was conceived in love, not in evil. My husband and I have been trying for 2 years. Are you sure you're ready? After everything you've been through? Hope was quiet for a moment. Do you know what Sarah said to me the night before the ritual?
No.
She said that David tried to steal our ability to create life out of love. But that didn't mean we could never have that gift back. She said that when we were ready, when we had healed enough, we could reclaim our right to be mothers on our own terms. Joy felt tears welling up. That sounds like Sarah. I want to name the baby Sarah if it's a girl. Would that be okay with you? Hope. I think that would make Sarah incredibly happy. Over the following months, Joy watched Hope's pregnancy with a mixture of wonder and protectiveness. This pregnancy was everything the cursed ones had not been, filled with joy, anticipation, and the kind of love that creates rather than destroys. When little Sarah was born, healthy, beautiful, and completely human, Joy held her in the hospital room and whispered a promise. Your namesake was the bravest person I ever knew, and I promise you, little one, that you'll grow up in a world she made safer for girls like you. Hope looked up from her hospital bed, exhausted but radiant. Do you think she knows? Do you think our Sarah knows about this baby? As if in answer, the afternoon sunlight streaming through the hospital window seemed to brighten, casting a warm glow over the baby's face. I think she knows, Joy said softly, and I think she's smiling. 3 years after Sarah's sacrifice, the foundation had grown into an international organization with offices in 12 countries. But perhaps more importantly, the girls they had saved were now becoming leaders themselves. Kemi, the teenager they had rescued from forced marriage, had graduated university with a degree in social work. She returned to Lagos specifically to work for the Sarah Foundation. Miss Joy, Kemi said during her job interview, I know I could make more money working for the government or private organizations, but this foundation saved my life. I want to spend my career saving other girls' lives. What do you think you can bring to our work? Joy asked. I understand what it feels like to be helpless. But I also understand what it feels like to be saved. I can speak to girls in their darkest moments and honestly tell them that there is hope on the other side. Kemi was hired immediately and quickly became one of their most effective counselors. She had an uncanny ability to reach girls that even experienced social workers couldn't connect with. How do you do it? Joy asked one day, after watching Kemi successfully convince a 16-year-old to leave her abusive situation. I tell them about Sarah, Kemi said simply. I tell them that a woman they never met loved them enough to die for them, and if a stranger could love them that much, then they're worth saving. Other girls they had helped began returning as well. Some became teachers, others social workers, nurses, lawyers. They formed an unofficial network of protection, watching out for vulnerable girls in their communities. One evening, as Joy worked late in her office, she received an unexpected visitor. Mrs. Rose, now in her 80s but still sharp as ever, knocked on her door. Mrs. Rose, what brings you here so late? The elderly woman entered slowly, leaning on her walking stick. I have something important to tell you, child. Something about Sarah. Joy's heart quickened. What about her? Sit down, Mrs. Rose said, settling into the chair across from Joy's desk. What I'm about to tell you may be difficult to believe. After everything we've been through, I think I can believe anything. Mrs. Rose smiled. Sarah's sacrifice was more powerful than even I understood. The ritual didn't just break David's curse. It created something new. What do you mean? Have you noticed the strange coincidences? The way girls in danger seem to find help at exactly the right moment? The way your foundation workers always seem to arrive just when they're needed most? Joy thought about it. There had been numerous instances where their timing had been uncannily perfect. Situations where they had rescued girls just minutes before terrible things happened to them. I thought we were just getting better at our work. It's more than that. Sarah's spirit has become a guardian force. She's guiding your work from beyond. You mean she's not a ghost exactly, something more. Her sacrifice created a protective energy that watches over vulnerable girls. When a girl is in danger and has no one else to turn to, Sarah's presence guides her to safety. Joy felt goosebumps rise on her arms. How do you know this? Because I've seen her. Joy's eyes widened. You've seen Sarah? 3 times now. Each time, I was helping a girl in a supernatural situation, cases where normal methods weren't enough. Sarah appeared to help me complete the work. What did she look like? Like herself, but more. Radiant. Powerful. At peace. Mrs. Rose paused. She asked me to give you a message. What message? She wants you to know that her choice to sacrifice herself wasn't an ending. It was a transformation. She's not gone, Joy. She's everywhere girls need protection. And she's prouder of you than words can express. Joy began to cry. I miss her so much. Some days I don't know how to continue without her. But you are continuing. And every girl you save, every life you change, every future you protect, that's Sarah working through you. Mrs. Rose stood to leave, then paused at the door. There's one more thing. Sarah's influence is growing. Other countries are beginning to report similar protective phenomena around organizations that help vulnerable women. Her sacrifice is creating a worldwide network of spiritual protection. You mean other women like Sarah are being created? No. Sarah was unique, but her example is inspiring others to make sacrifices. Not necessarily death, but sacrifices of comfort, safety, easy lives to protect the vulnerable. And each act of selfless love strengthens the protective force she created. After Mrs. Rose left, Joy sat alone in her office, processing this revelation. The idea that Sarah was still active in the world, still saving girls, was both comforting and overwhelming. She picked up her phone and called Grace. Grace, it's Joy. Are you awake? Yes, I was just putting the children to bed. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I need to tell you something Mrs. Rose said about Sarah. Joy explained the entire conversation. Grace listened without interrupting. That explains so much, Grace said when Joy finished. The children have been saying they see a bright lady in their dreams who tells them they're safe now. And at nursing school, whenever I'm struggling with a difficult case, I feel this presence guiding my hands. Do you think it's really her? Joy, I carried David's evil inside me for months. I know what supernatural presence feels like. And what I feel now is the opposite of that darkness. It's pure love and protection. But how is it possible? I think, Grace said slowly, that when someone loves others more than themselves, really, truly loves with everything they are, that love becomes stronger than death itself. 2 weeks later, Joy received a call that made her heart race. Miss Joy? This is Sarah's mother, Mrs. Adunny. Mrs. Adunny, how are you? I am well, thank you. I am calling because I would like to visit Lagos, to see the foundation and to understand what my daughter died for. Joy had dreaded this moment for 3 years. How do you explain to a mother that her daughter died fighting a supernatural curse? How do you help her understand that Sarah's death saved thousands of girls? Of course, Mrs. Adunny. When would you like to come? Next week, if possible. I have been saving money for this trip for 2 years. Joy arranged for Mrs. Adunny to stay in a guest room at the foundation's main shelter. When the elderly woman arrived, Joy was struck by how much she looked like Sarah. The same warm eyes, the same determined jaw, the same aura of quiet strength. Thank you for welcoming me, Mrs. Adunny said as Joy showed her around the facility. I need to see what Sarah built with her life. Over the next 3 days, Joy introduced Mrs. Adunny to dozens of girls and women whose lives had been saved by the foundation. Each person who met Sarah's mother wanted to share their story, to express their gratitude for Sarah's sacrifice. Your daughter saved me from a trafficking ring, said a 20-year-old university student. I was going to be sold to men in Europe. Because of Sarah, I'm studying to become a lawyer so I can help other girls. Sarah's foundation helped me escape a forced marriage, shared a teenage mother. Now my daughter will grow up free to choose her own path. I was addicted to drugs and living on the streets, said a young woman who now worked as a counselor. Sarah's people found me and helped me get clean. They showed me I was worth saving. After hearing dozens of these testimonials, Mrs. Adunny asked Joy to take her to Sarah's grave. The cemetery was peaceful in the late afternoon light. Sarah's headstone was simple but constantly adorned with fresh flowers left by people whose lives she had touched. Mrs. Adunny knelt beside the grave and placed her hand on the headstone. My daughter, she said in Yoruba. I came here angry that you died so young, angry that you left me, angry that God took my child instead of an old woman like me. Joy stood nearby, tears streaming down her face. But now I understand, Mrs. Adunny continued. You didn't die, Sarah. You multiplied. Every girl in that shelter is you. Every woman who found the courage to leave a dangerous situation because she heard your story is you. Every man who decided to treat women with respect because he learned about your sacrifice is you. Mrs. Adunny's voice broke. I raised you to be strong, to protect others. I didn't know that would mean losing you, but I'm proud of the woman you became. I'm proud of the choice you made. A warm breeze swept through the cemetery, carrying the scent of the jasmine flower someone had placed on Sarah's grave that morning. She's here, Mrs. Adunny whispered. I can feel her. Joy nodded, unable to speak. Sarah, Mrs. Adunny said to the grave, your mother forgives you for leaving, and your mother promises to help carry on your work. That evening, Mrs. Adunny made an announcement to the foundation staff. I am moving to Lagos, she said. I want to spend my remaining years helping with Sarah's work. I may be old, but I can cook for the girls in the shelter. I can be a grandmother to those who have no family. I can tell them stories about the woman who died to save them. Joy was overwhelmed with emotion. Mrs. Adunny, are you sure? Your life in the village, your friends. My daughter's real family is here, Mrs. Adunny replied. With the girls she died to protect. This is where I belong. 5 years after Sarah's death, the foundation had grown beyond anything Joy had ever imagined. They now had offices in 18 countries across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. But growth brought new challenges. Joy found herself traveling constantly, managing budgets that seemed impossible, dealing with government bureaucracies that often saw their work as threatening to traditional power structures. During a particularly difficult week, when funding for their Ghana office had been cut and 3 staff members had quit due to burnout, Joy found herself questioning whether she was strong enough to carry on Sarah's vision. She was working alone in her office at midnight, trying to figure out how to keep their shelters running, when her computer screen flickered. For just a moment, instead of spreadsheets and budget reports, she saw Sarah's face on the screen. Sarah was smiling, and she mouthed the words, "You're doing beautifully." Joy blinked and the image was gone, but the exhaustion that had been weighing her down lifted. The next morning brought unexpected good news. A tech billionaire who had heard Sarah's story pledged $10 million to the foundation's work. The note that came with the donation read, "My daughter is the same age Sarah was when she made her sacrifice. I want to live in a world where girls like my daughter never have to make that choice." But it wasn't just money that came. Volunteers arrived from around the world. Doctors, teachers, social workers, lawyers, all wanting to contribute to Sarah's legacy. "Why did you come?" Joy asked a group of new volunteers from Germany. "Because Sarah's story taught us that evil only wins when good people do nothing," replied a young doctor. "We refuse to do nothing." Similar responses came from volunteers from Japan, Brazil, Canada, and dozens of other countries. Sarah's sacrifice had created a global movement of people committed to protecting the vulnerable. One day, Joy received a video call from Maria, who ran their office in Colombia. "Joy, you need to see this," Maria said, her voice filled with excitement. She turned her camera to show a young girl, maybe 14 years old, who was speaking to a group of her peers. "My name is Isabella," the girl was saying in Spanish. "Last year, men tried to force me into prostitution. I was ready to give up, to let them take me, because I thought no one in the world cared about girls like me." Isabella paused, and Joy could see tears in her eyes. "But then I heard the story of Sarah, a woman from Nigeria who gave her life to save girls she had never met. If a stranger could love me that much, I thought, then I must be worth fighting for. So I fought. I ran. I found help." The girl's voice grew stronger. "Now I want to tell every girl who hears this, you are worth fighting for. You are loved by people you've never met. You have the power to save yourself, just like Sarah had the power to save all of us." Joy wiped tears from her eyes as she watched. Sarah's story had traveled across continents and languages to give this girl the courage to save herself. "This is happening everywhere," Maria explained. "Girls are invoking Sarah's name when they need courage. Her story has become like a prayer for the vulnerable." After the call ended, Joy sat in her office thinking about the ripple effects of one woman's sacrifice. Sarah had died to save 17 women, but her death had somehow created a protective force that continued to expand across the globe. That evening, as Joy walked through the shelter, where Mrs. Adunny now served as a beloved grandmother figure to dozens of rescued girls, she overheard a conversation between 2 teenagers. "I had another dream about Sarah last night," one girl was saying. "What did she tell you this time?" asked the other. "She said that every time we help another girl, every time we choose courage over fear, every time we refuse to be victims, were keeping her alive. Do you think that's true? I think Sarah never really died. I think she just learned how to be everywhere at once. Joy smiled through her tears. Out of the mouths of children, she thought, comes the deepest truth. Sarah wasn't gone. She had simply transformed from one person into a force of love and protection that would continue growing for generations to come. And every girl who found the courage to save herself, every woman who dedicated her life to helping others, every person who chose love over fear was proof that Sarah's sacrifice had not been in vain. As Joy locked up the shelter for the night, she whispered to the empty hallway, "Thank you, Sarah, for showing us that love really is stronger than death." A warm breeze swept through the building, and Joy could swear she heard, carried on the wind, the sound of Sarah's laughter full of joy and pride and infinite, unending love. Joy stood at the podium of the United Nations General Assembly, her hair now silver but her voice as strong as ever. Behind her, a massive screen displayed the faces of thousands of girls and women from around the world, all lives saved by the global network that had grown from Sarah's sacrifice. 20 years ago, Joy began. My best friend Sarah gave her life to break a supernatural curse that threatened women across Nigeria. Today, the foundation that bears her name operates in 47 countries and has directly saved over 100,000 lives. The assembly erupted in applause, but Joy raised her hand for silence. But numbers don't tell the real story. The real story is about transformation, about how one woman's willingness to sacrifice everything for others created a ripple effect that continues to grow. Joy clicked to the next slide, showing a photo of Dr. Grace Okonkwo cutting the ribbon at a new women's hospital in Lagos. This is Grace. 20 years ago, she was one of the women Sarah died to save. Today, she's Nigeria's leading expert in maternal health and has delivered over 3,000 babies safely into this world. Another slide showed Kemi, now the foundation's director in West Africa, speaking to a group of young activists. This is Kemi. We rescued her from forced marriage when she was 15. She now leads our largest regional office and has personally saved over 500 girls from trafficking. Joy showed photo after photo women who had been saved becoming women who saved others, creating an ever-expanding network of protection and love. But perhaps the most important legacy of Sarah's sacrifice isn't what we've accomplished, Joy continued. It's what we've learned. We've learned that when we truly love others more than ourselves, that love becomes a force that transcends death itself. Joy paused, looking out at the faces of world leaders from every continent. In schools across Africa, children learn Sarah's story alongside the stories of other heroes. In refugee camps, her name is whispered by girls who need courage. In the darkest places where human trafficking thrives, her memory gives people the strength to fight back. Some say this is just the power of inspiration, of a good story well told. But those of us who knew Sarah, who saw what she accomplished, who continue to feel her presence in our work, we know it's more than that. Joy's voice grew soft but carried clearly through the assembly hall. Sarah taught us that the greatest victory isn't surviving evil. It's transforming it into something good. She showed us that one person's sacrifice can become everyone's salvation. And she proved that love, real love, the kind that puts others before self, that love is indeed stronger than death. The assembly rose in a standing ovation that lasted for several minutes. But as Joy gathered her papers and prepared to leave the podium, she noticed something that made her smile. In the back corner of the assembly hall, barely visible to anyone else, stood the translucent figure of a young woman. She was clapping too, her face radiant with pride and joy. For just a moment, Sarah's eyes met Joy's across the vast room. Sarah placed her hand over her heart and mouthed the words, "Thank you for carrying on." Then she was gone, but the warmth of her presence lingered. As Joy left the podium, she thought about all the girls around the world who would go to sleep that night safe and protected because of choices Sarah had made 20 years ago. She thought about all the future girls who would never know danger because of the network of love and protection that continued to grow from Sarah's sacrifice. And she thought about her friend, who had chosen to become nothing so that others could become everything they were meant to be. Sarah's body was gone, But her love lived on in every act of courage, every moment of protection, every choice to help rather than harm. She had become what she had always been meant to be. Not just a person, but a force for good that would never die, never fade, never stop fighting for those who couldn't fight for themselves. In a small village in Kenya, a young girl named Sarah, named after the foundation's founder, stood up to the men who wanted to force her into marriage. In a shelter in Bangladesh, another girl whispered Sarah's name as she found the courage to testify against her traffickers. In Brazil, Guatemala, the Philippines, and dozens of other countries, women and girls invoked Sarah's memory as they chose courage over fear, love over hatred, sacrifice over selfishness. And somewhere in the space between earth and heaven, between the seen and unseen, Sarah smiled and continued her work, loving, protecting, and saving, one heart at a time, for all eternity. Her story had no ending because love stories never do. They just grow stronger with each telling, deeper with each heart they touch, and more powerful with each life they transform. Sarah had given everything to save 17 women. In return, she had become immortal.